Notice when the land grant act was passed, that's what it took for the past. What it took to go to class, killing all around the world just to get ahead. Segregating and excluding black Americans from higher education cause they know we built to win. Yeah, we built to win. I recommend you at a HBCU. I recommend you at a HBCU.
HBCU SOUL, the podcast where we celebrate the legacies, traditions, and incredible stories of historically black colleges and universities. And oh yeah, don't forget the soul. I'm Kareem Penn, Virginia State University alum, educator, and lifelong advocate of historically black colleges and universities. I'm joined by my man,
Anthony Bond. I'm Anthony Bond, your co-pilot on this journey through legacy, leadership, learning, life at HBCUs. I mean, from the past to the present, from yard to the world, this is where education meets empowerment, culture, and community.
Yeah. So just want to drop a few nuggets for all of you who, may be tuning in that recognize us from our previous stints of What You Wish You Knew about HBCUs, right? And then we came back with HBCU SOUL, and for me, there was just something that was missing. There was something that wasn't really hitting, right? And I know we talked about all the different things, especially with what you knew about HBCUs, what you wish you knew about HBCUs, and what that format was like, and then coming back with HBCU SOUL. But I felt like we needed to do something a little bit different. So, we wanted to take this opportunity to invite you in to our new HBCU format.
The remix.
The remix.
Not the Diddy remix, though. Just the remix.
Just the remix. So we want to talk about why and what HBCU SOUL is. What is the mission and vision behind this in this concept? So for me, HBCU SOUL exists to celebrate and elevate the stories, the legacies, and culture of historically black colleges and universities. Through storytelling, honest conversations, cultural pride, we want to connect the past, the present, and the future. Again, this is where education meets empowerment, community, and truth.
I mean, listen. Right now, this state of the world we live in truth is it's a big deal.
Right.
There's a lot of misinformation going around, misinformation about HBCUs. Social media. There's entire podcasts that are built around the untruths about HBCUs. So when we talk about our vision, our vision is to be a leading platform, amplifying the soul and impact of HBCUs. You just uniting generations. That's the thing about HBCUs. It's a generational thing. I'm a generational HBCU student.
Right.
Now my sons both attend an HBCU. So again, That's the next generation that's moving into HBCUs. I mean, it's just to honor the legacy, the worldwide, just the worldwide impact that HBCUs have had. HBCU SOUL, our goal is to, just to tell stories. You'll hear us talk about stories. These stories are like 30 years old, but guess what? They seem like they really just happened. That's the impact that, just going to HBCU, just the history, the culture, just the real life stories behind people who attended an HBCU.
Yeah, and that part is important. Just bringing those generations together. And like you said, your son's being at an HBCU now. You are the second generation of the HBCU. Your kids are now the third generation of HBCU. Hoping that one of my family members will go to an HBCU. My daughter. But when we talk about again that what HBCU SOUL, the podcast is truly about, right? We want to take you on a journey. We want to highlight a different HBCU each episode, where we will focus on the legacy, the culture, the impact, and the current developments, the mix in history, the alumni stories, and present challenges of the 100 plus HBCUs. So our podcast is for prospective students, their families, the alumni that is out there, because we're going to be asking you to drop some nuggets in the comments area, as we move through, especially those when we hit your HBCU. It's for educators, advocates, and anyone who's passionate about the Black experience in education.
I mean, that's the thing, everybody has a story. Every HBCU is different. Ours, we experience certain things, but the thing about it is the narrative is generally really the same.
Right.
If you talk about being in the cafeteria, it doesn't matter what HBCU was at, it's going to be something in that story that's going to like resonate with you. You know what, like I remember that. I remember when those types of things happen.
Right.
Of course, when we talk about homecoming, everybody's homecoming is very, very similar.
Right.
There are certain things, if you have a football team, you have a band. It's a marching band. They're going to play, the new songs, they're going to sing, they're going to dance, everybody's cheerleaders have a name.
Right.
It's the pageantry of it. And the thing is, it's a common thread. It's a common thread. So, what we're really trying to do with, HBCU SOUL, we're just trying to inform, inspire, connect, because, not everybody has an HBCU.
Right.
Like I think in previous episodes, I talked about, growing up. But one thing that I actually found out recently is that I was born at a HBCU.
Wow.
I was born at Meharry Hospital in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm like, Meharry Medical College, that's an HBCU.
Right.
So literally I came into this world on the campus of an HBCU, which when I figured that out, it just really, really blew my mind. I'm like, no wonder I love HBCU so much. I mean, that was my first breath was at an HBCU.
Right. Yeah, that's when you talk about giving back and exposing and not everyone having an HBCU, right? So just think about the states and on the West Coast, they don't have any HBCUs, right? So how do they garner their information? How do they learn about HBCUs? Not that, we are the end all be all, but we want to be able to provide that with you. And that's why it was so important to make sure that we get this as right as we can possibly get it, to make sure that that information that is being shared and disseminated is, accurate and purposeful and meaningful to reach, all those individuals who may be interested in an historically Black college and university. And if there is no interest, to help garner that interest into
definitely.
an HBCU. So for all of you who joined us on previous episodes, welcome back. Thank you for that. One of the biggest things that, at least for me, and he always tries to crack on me and tell jokes, right? As you can see, we have our HBCU SOUL podcast shirts, right?
Fresh off the press.
Fresh off the press. We also got them in black, right? But the one thing, for those, again, who know us out there from our previous episodes, I wear a different HBCU shirt for every episode, and that's going to continue. But one thing that makes me unique is that I have a tendency to have a pair of Jordans, or sneakers, we'll say sneakers, that goes with every HBCU shirt. So with HBCU SOUL being the new brand that we have of shirts, of course I had to do it. There it is. Pair of Jordan
Here
1s.
he is.
There it is.
As usual, showing off.
Showing, yeah, that's my vice in life. People smoke cigars, they drink bourbon and whiskey, have bottles of wine, maybe collect guns and things of that nature. I collect shoes, so.
That match the HBCU shirts.
Right, that's important. Yeah, I'm not like all the ones I've been watching some of the stuff and seeing, like, my daughter's in high school and first day fits, right? It has filtered down to the high schools, all the HBCUs first day fits.
Okay.
Right? So they may not, but
them first day fits don't really make any sense. I'm old, because when I looked at first day fits, I'm like, I can't even really figure out what's going on.
yeah.
It's like you got like a sky blue shirt, some Pokemon shoes. I can't figure it out. But I'm old. You know what I mean? I'm old. This new generation, they don't match.
Yeah, and
They matching is whack, I think now.
right. So this may be
Shit,
whack.
I'm showing my age. Just the word whack. They probably like, what? What did he say? Yeah.
So I might be whack for doing this. But again, thanks for coming back with us. We're going to take you on a lot of journeys through this. But again, we wanted to make sure that you knew what we stood by and why this is important to us. So as we move through, we want to just continue to just talk about why HBCUs are important. And we'll dive more into specific HBCUs in each episode that we have and that we will air. But I think it's important for while we're here today and talking about HBCU Soul to talk about the importance of historically black colleges and universities. So when you think about HBCUs, and right, they were established to provide Black African Americans access to higher education during an era where legal segregation and systemic inclusion was you know, it was the law.
The way of the land.
The way of the land.
Way of the land.
Right? You know, the newly freed slaves, they were denied education and educational opportunities. So black students found refuge and purpose in these institutions, these historically black colleges and universities, places built by and for the black community. And when you think about the first HBCU, you know, Cheney University in Pennsylvania, right? There's going to be a lot of mixed feelings about that because, again, there are people who are
There's
like,
always a debate.
There's always a debate. It's
Cheney, Lincoln.
you know, Wilberforce, right? Which one? So, yes, Cheney was the first established HBCU in 1837. It wasn't the first HBCU to offer a full-fledged 4-year degree program. That was Lincoln, 1854. Also in Pennsylvania, and then followed up with Wilberforce in 1856.
It was interesting with Wilberforce and Cheney. Well, no, so I guess with Lincoln and Wilberforce, you know, those were established while the Civil War was actually happening.
Right.
So the Civil War and just the whole, you know, the whole argument around slavery. I mean, that's amazing that, you know, during that time where the majority of black people in this country were enslaved, that, you know, you established these institutions. So that's always the thing that kind of sticks out, you know, just when you look at the year that a lot of these schools were founded, then you look at historically what was happening at that time.
Right.
Like, you know, what was happening in 1854.
Right.
You know, just the fact that, you know, as a black person during that time in this country, the majority of us, we were working 25 hours a day trying to survive. So the fact that you went to college, you know, was just, you know, it was really amazing that you were even able to go at all. I mean, but, you know, when we talk about HBCUs, it's not just about access. You know what I mean? They were designed to, you know, uplift a community that pretty much had purposely been left in the dark. You know, you couldn't learn even if you wanted to.
Right.
So, you know, when we were starting these HBCUs, we literally were starting from point zero. So starting from point zero with a majority completely uneducated population base. So, I mean, so that's the amazing thing. It's like, you know, so many of these people attended HBCUs, those first generations, they hadn't even gone to, there was no kindergarten that they attended before. Right. They kind of were adults and enrolled into these schools.
Right.
So there was so much natural intelligence that they already had leaving slavery and just attending these schools and becoming great.
Right.
You know, we talk about, you know, Booker T. Washington, who was a slave. I think slavery ended when he was 9. He didn't really go to primary school, and then he went to Hampton University. So he had a lot of natural intelligence as it is. So, I mean, they were really designed to just, you know, begin to prepare the next generation of, you know, black people in this country. So, you know, every generation we've taken more and more steps to kind of rise up. You know, I mean, Civil War ended, you know, education was moving quickly. There was a lot of money being dumped through the Freedmen's Bureau. You know, there were churches, there were missionary societies. They were all kind of focused on, you know, uplifting this new population, but it still was very difficult. You know, some of the early institutions, like, you know, there was Howard, there was Fisk, there was Morehouse. A lot of these schools came from that early funding push.
Right. Yeah, and, you know, without that, but the sustainability of those schools probably don't last. We don't have them today, right?
No.
Right? So to have that foundation, to have this idea, this thought process, and then the wherewithal to put this in motion to where we now have over 100+ historically black colleges and universities, right?
And we still got some coming back. Like I saw a article, I believe it's Barber Scotia.
Barber Scotia
has opened up after a long absence. So I'm still, hoping for. I'm from Virginia, so I'm still hoping St. Paul College will come back.
Right.
I enjoyed playing tennis against St. Paul when I was in college.
I forgot you were tennis.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But yeah, that just speaks to like the foresight. And part of what we want to do here is to just continue to push and push and push and share all of what we know about HBCUs, the research that we're going to do in our, in our episodes about our HBCUs, and this makes sure that everyone is aware of what, how important historically Black colleges and universities are to the landscape of this country, into the Black community. So, for many Blacks, and HBCUs were once the only route to college, right? Yeah. They provided a foundation for literacy, higher learning, and upward mobility, right? So this thing about that term, upward mobility.
Yeah, they were starting from nothing.
Nothing.
Starting from scratch.
Yeah. So when you think about that, and just us two alum of HBCUs, right? And then our spouses of HBCUs.
I mean, if you look at, the progression, like for instance, with my family, none of my grandparents had even high school diplomas. I don't even think any of my grandparents ever even went to high school. So, that first generation that attended the HBCU, that was like a big deal.
Right.
None of them had ever. So that's a prime example when we talk about upward mobility.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, all right, for me, college was expected.
Right.
For my sons, it's expected.
Right.
If you're not going to college, then what are you doing?
Right.
Some kind of plan is taking place.
Something has
Preferably
to take place.
college, but if it's not college, it can be other things.
Right.
But it's still a continued process of moving on.
Right. That whole thing of, I need my children to be better than me, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. So but that comes with that upward mobility. So today, HBCUs, they still open doors, especially for first generation, low income, and underserved students. So that part is important, right? When you think about, and I don't knock anyone who wants to go to a community college, anyone that wants to go to a PWI, that is your choice.
Yeah, that's definitely not what this is about.
None of it, right? But we also want to make sure that you know that an historically Black college and university is another option for you out there, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what that is. So through the Mural Act, Acts of 1862 and 1890, better known as the Land Grant Acts, helped to reshape education. When states refused to integrate, they created separate land grant universities. So thinking about that from 1890s, FAMU, Tuskegee, that policy still fuels most of the communities and HBCUs today in their outreach.
I mean, it's kind of like, when we talk about that, we can't talk about, today without, focusing on the past. Two of our greatest leaders attended HBCUs. Right. You had, the two visions, the two people that were, competing as the top leaders during that time. You had Booker T. Washington, who of course founded Tuskegee.
Right.
Tuskegee had a heavy focus on, in industrial training, farming,
right,
agriculture, inventing all these different things that connected to that. And then you had, W.E.B. Du Bois, who attended Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee. He focused on, his theory of the talented 10th. The 10% of the Black population that was actually lucky enough to be educated. Our job was to make sure that we made things to increase the, the comfort of the people who weren't allowed to go. Because during these times, there was a very small percentage of Americans in general that were attending college, of any race. Because it was an industrial society. People were working in factories and doing different things. So, I mean, they both had different lanes, but they had the same destination. Black excellence was, the key. That was the goal.
Yeah, and an important goal, right? For in order for society to be where it is today. So now, with this, there in today's society, the landscape of the country, there are a lot of things that are like trickling down and affecting some of our historically black colleges and universities and funding and things of that nature. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But, I just want to say, look at where we started with historically black colleges in the time war through segregation and all the things. And to be able to withstand all that, I am 100% positive that even with what we're going through today and experiencing, that we will, historically black colleges and universities will continue to stand on, and hold truth to what they were established for.
We're going to be here till homecomings go away. That's when HBCUs are dead. Because homecoming is gone.
Right.
Homecoming is not going anywhere. We're going to continue to support our HBCUs.
Yeah. It's all HBCU love. And, when I was thinking about rebranding and coming up with the name HBCU SOUL, right? Mm-hmm. I wanted something to really signify and define what HBCUs are, and no other. It was a no-brainer. Like soul, it is the heart and soul of black communities, and especially in the South, right? It is the heart and soul is where you establish and learn who you are. So anybody that had attended an HBCU, they would tell you it's where it helped shape me and define me and like gave me my purpose. It's in my soul. So we may walk around and be like, talk about every other HBCU because we went to one and it's like, oh yeah, HBCU is not good. But at the end of the day, it's all HBCU love, and we may end with that. But now I just want to make sure that everyone knows, like, it is also the soul of who we are and what we are and where we are going with that. So thinking through the 20th century, HBCUs powered culture and civil rights. The Divine Nine Greek organization mobilized services. HBCU students led the Greensboro sit-ins. The SNCC formed at Shore. Brown versus the Board of Education shifted the law, but HBCU students shifted the nation. So when you think about all the things that they were involved in, and we talked about all the things that they had to go through in order to continue to exist, it did help shift a nation. That was part of it.
I mean, you could even look at the suffrage movement. Women from Howard University and different universities, they were participants in that huge suffrage march that went through Washington D.C. when women were fighting for their right to vote, which they finally did get later on. But those were women from HBCUs.
Right.
And even when they were in those parades, oftentimes they was put in the back. But guess what? They never let that deter. So when all women got the right to vote, women from HBCUs, they were a part of that whole thing. I mean, just changing policy. We talk about policies like Title 3B of the Higher Education Act of 1965. Just the philanthropy from the United Negro College Fund. I mean, you can even look at like, the NAACP. We know that, Du Bois was a major factor in that. There was everything that we've accomplished in this country. If you look, if you pull a layer back, there's always an HBCU connection. In 1890, funding was finally given and sustained to HBCUs, although we still are underfunded.
Right.
We're still underfunded. We're still not getting all the funding that we're supposed to get. I mean, listen, we have created 107 HBCUs. Some of them have come from nothing. Right. Some of them are huge, grand places. Some of them are small.
Right.
Like if you go to South Carolina, where my wife's family's from, there's a small technical school, Denmark Tech, is an HBCU.
Right.
And so it's so many different types of HBCUs. But like you said, there's always a common thread in this situation. There's a common thread. No matter what HBCU you've attended, there's a common thing. I mean, if you look at the fact that, overall in this country, even though we have a lot of these different HBCUs that we talk about that we love, HBCUs are really only about 3% of U.S. colleges. 3%. About 3%.
That's
3%.
crazy.
But, the thing about it is, they punching way above their weight. They enroll about 8% of all black undergraduate students. So think about every black person in America, 8% of all those people that go to school go to an HBCU. They give out 13% of all undergraduate bachelor's degrees that are given out to black students. And nearly a quarter of all black STEM degrees come from students who earned them at HBCUs.
That's amazing. I'm just still baffled at the fact that it's 3% of, U.S. colleges, right? And then 8%, right? So what we're looking at, 48 million black people in this country?
Yeah.
So that's a little less than 4.8 million black people that attend university, an HBCU. So, across studies, the impact that HBCUs have on producing leaders, around 70% of the black doctors and scientists come from historically black colleges and universities.
Oh, that's crazy.
Half of black engineers come from historically black colleges and universities, and over a third of black lawyers started at an historically black college and university. So some also estimate that nearly 80% of the black judges trace their roots to an HBCU. Right, so one of the most famous Supreme Court justices,
of course,
started at an HBCU, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess that's why they also try to claim that fame that they're the first HBCU. Shout out to Thurgood Marshall, Lincoln University alum, Supreme Court justice, played an integral role in Brown versus Board of Education. Mm-hmm. So 3%, but look at the percentages of the doctors, the lawyers, the teachers, the STEMs, the judges, politicians, right? Just being able to say we produce this amount in significant numbers, but we are this
and underfunded.
So
you're producing those numbers,
right?
And you're not even. You're not even driving that car with a full tank of gas.
That's crazy.
So just imagine if the funding that's been shorted from HBCUs all these years, if they had full funding, what those numbers would turn into.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing.
So thinking about why HBCUs matter, that is why, right? From the past to where we are now to the present, what they have been able to produce. Like you said, with the underfunding, and only representing 3% of U.S. colleges, but producing, those careers, those, again, the lawyers, the doctors, the judges, the teachers, right, the STEM, all of that in high numbers, we must be doing something right.
Listen, gotta be doing something.
So, I know that we talked about it earlier. HBCUs, when you think about them and think about the black church, right? Mm-hmm. For some, in the black community, the black church is the thing. It's the culture of the neighborhood.
It's the pillar.
It's the pillar.
I mean, it's the pillar.
And not too far from that are HBCUs, especially, in those southern states. They come in and create those sanctuaries of culture, right? Classrooms that were rooted in black thought, bands and choirs that move the spirit, and a service that stretches beyond the campus. So when you think about HBCUs, you can't help but make the correlation with the black church.
I mean, it's all tied together.
All tied together.
It's all tied together. I probably would even jump out there to say I bet you a lot of the black parishioners in America came from HBCUs. See, that's one thing I've never really looked at, the amount of black pastors that have come through some of the, like almost every pastor I know has been through Virginia Union School of Theology.
Right.
So I just the numbers, and there's a connection, because of course the church was the first place that black people were able to gain respect.
Right.
First place they were able to have leadership positions. The first place they were able to kind of like, speak freely during that time. So I mean, but these schools are created inclusively by design. They're inclusive by design. While about 3/4 of the students are black, there is actually a large number of non-black students that have become, interested in HBCUs. I mean, when you talk about in America and outside of America, a lot of international students attend HBCUs. Like I know Howard has a large population of international students. They're drawn to it.
Right.
They're drawn to. I mean, listen, it's a difference. I can't describe it, but if you go to HBCU, there's just a different vibe, and people are kind of drawn to that. They're drawn to the purpose. They're drawn to the belonging. They're drawn to the community. Equity, empowerment, excellence. It resonates. It reeks from HBCUs. So people that want that type of feeling, want that type of vibe, a real value-centered education, HBCUs are. I mean, that's their number one choice.
Right, and then it falls into those first generation students. That sense of belonging that is everything to them, right? Because they are the first to experience, whether it's going away to college. I was the first generation, leaving New York to go down to Virginia State University. We're talking about 6 hours away. Most of the people in my family, if they went to college, it started out in that, community realm, looking at trades, going into the workforce, right? All of those things. And then, I went away to school. I went 6 hours away from New York. And then when you get down there are people that look like you that are coming from some of the same backgrounds, some of the same, again, in New York, the project area, right? Coming from New Brighton projects on Staten Island, meeting D, who came from, was out in Queens, him and Chris, and then all the other people. But then you also see that there are blacks who grew up in the suburbs who you are all there trying to achieve that goal. And, maybe their experience was different than our experience, where they maybe went to a high school where there wasn't a lot of black students. So now bringing them in. So all of it, thinking about that, that sense of belonging, advising, mentorships, cultural affirmation, just, all of it turns into that confidence, and then that confidence into a degree. I'm going to tell you right now, Virginia State University helped me to become who I am and where I am, from the nurturing to their empowerment to the sense of, like, every time you are in a space, be confident and be bold about who you are and what you are and what you represent. So I just, when we talk about historically black colleges and universities, community, culture, inclusion, and belonging, are being practiced there. And then what is learned there is being spread out in society once those individuals graduate and go back into their communities, or go back into another community, or go back into a different community, and to help shape that one as well. You got Norfolk State, not too far. Hampton.
Shout out to Michael Vick.
Mike Vick, yes, Mike Vick.
757, we definitely representing right now.
They played Towson this past weekend.
Hey, listen. Doesn't matter.
I get it.
They ain't win the Battle of the Bands, though.
No, they would never win the Battle of the Bands with that. And you got Hampton, but now going west, right? Mm-hmm. Going into Petersburg, Virginia. Like, what was that sense of belonging for you there?
I mean, really, honestly, man, like, I needed I needed that sense of belonging because, you know, I attended a school where, you know, the black population was small. So I really didn't get nurtured at all. You know, I was kind of like just a number, you know, but I knew about HBCUs just because of where I was from.
Right.
You know, where I'm from, everybody went to the Norfolk State game. Norfolk State was like the center of culture. My mother went to Norfolk State. My cousins went to Norfolk State. My uncle went to Norfolk State. Everybody kind of went there, but it was like, you know, so when I went to Petersburg, you know, it kind of settled right in.
Right.
You know, we all know about Miss Pam. Miss Pam, if you looked at anything, Miss Pam is famous. Miss Pam worked in the cafeteria. She still works in the cafeteria. But Miss Pam, you know, she nurtured me.
Right.
You know, she saw, you know, because she saw me, you know, kind of sit at the table by myself. Because eventually, you know how college is. You get there, you excited, but you have them days.
You do.
We like, man, I wish I was home.
Yep.
Man, I miss my mom. I miss this. You know, Miss Pam, she was a part of my community to, like, you know, nurture me. You know, then I had, you know, Dr. Hill. Then I had Dr. Bailey. Then I had all these different people that kind of played a different part, you know, in my life in that community. So it was kind of like, you know, it was almost like it really literally was a home away from home.
Right.
Which is, you know, what I needed when I went to college. Because, you know, I went to college, even though I wasn't that far away from home, I still wasn't home. And we're talking about a time where we went, listen, I remember jumping on those free calls and talking really quickly because long distance costs money.
Yes, it
So
did.
there was no FaceTime. So literally when I got dropped off, I didn't physically see my parents
Right.
until Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I didn't see my parents for months.
Yeah.
So I needed that university to kind of embrace me, which it did.
Right.
You know, there's a reason why all these years later, you know, I still ride or die with my HBCU
Yes.
because of, you know, the role that it played, you know, in my life.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking back to the phone calls, right? Because I think our first year at Virginia State, that was the first year they like actually installed phone lines in the dorm rooms.
Yeah, before it was the pay phone in the hallway.
In the hallway, right? So having that, and then like having a calling card, right?
man.
So I used to like rent out my calling card. Because people would be like, if I gotta call this, all right, but this is how much you're going to pay, and you gotta pay me up front to use my calling card. Because that long distance is not like now where you just pick up the phone and you call and it's like, you know, and then with the calling card, like you had to call at a certain time because of the rate and this and the other. That was ridiculous. But like you said, speaking to what you said, like having a group of individuals or having that community that included you and embraced you and, you know, understood that you were there for everyone that was on that campus was there for a common purpose, even though your majors were different. You were there to be educated and you were there to gain that knowledge so that you can go exist in the world and have an impact in the world. So, you know, Dr. Hill, love Dr. Hill. You know, I had Dr. Baker, Dr. Jones, you know, Dr. McMichael. Those individuals helped to, like, they let you know because they came generations before you. Yeah. So they were going through and experiencing the civil rights movement and everything during the 60s, right? So now their knowledge and what they had seen and what they were able to give to you and instill in you, not just only through textbooks, but through their experiences, is invaluable, right? So, it was crazy. Shout out to BSU all day long.
Listen, all day, VSU all day.
All day.
Virginia State University. Listen, there's no other way to really, you know, describe the impact that it had, you know, on my life. I mean, I got lifelong friends.
Right.
You know, I got lifelong friends that I met, you know, getting dropped off. You know, I still remember that day my parents pulled off and I looked at my man, you know, Fahim, and I had my cousin Chris. You know, we all looked at each other and was like, okay, this is it.
All right.
And, you know, and the journey began. The journey began. You know, I had to grow up, had to do some maturing. Quickly. You know, got locked out of the 8 a.m. class a couple times, you know. because I was waking up late.
I learned from that. First of all, who scheduled? Like, I scheduled an 8:30 French class on Tuesday, Thursday.
I had university studies, which I'm like, why am I sitting here learning the school song? Like, why am I learning
Hale State?
The founders of the school? Yeah, but that was at 8 o'clock in the morning.
True.
And I think it was Monday and Wednesday.
That's crazy.
But guess what? You know, now that I really know about the culture and the significance of HBCUs, all that stuff it's a reason why they gave freshmen that class.
Right.
University success, because you really needed to understand where you came from. You know what I mean? Because when you talk about the HBCU, most HBCUs are like the pillar of that community.
Right.
When I talk about Norfolk State, I'm from Norfolk. The school is named after where I'm from. And of course, Norfolk State, shout out to Norfolk State, but y'all know who Big State is.
Big State.
Norfolk State, of course, started as a subsidiary of Virginia State University. So, you wouldn't be there without us. So,
Correct.
Y'all know who Daddy is. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. The community was built around Norfolk State. Like, I remember my church where I worshiped, all the deacons, everybody had gone to Norfolk State. Like, it was the community.
Right.
And so it's like, they pushed to like revitalize. I remember Norfolk State band coming to my middle school and playing. I remember them coming to my high school. I remember like seeing Norfolk State students, different places around the city, doing like voter registration and all these different things. So they were like they were a part of the community.
Right.
It wasn't just this college is here. This college was the community. Just the free programs in the summer. They would have, open house, all the different things. And, when we talk about the sporting events, there was all kind of like, if you're from Norfolk, you're a discount day, all these things to make sure that the community was a part of it. So, just expanding research in the community, growing tech pipelines in the community, growing teachers. My mother was a part of the teacher corps at Norfolk State, and then she became a Norfolk public school teacher.
Wow.
So it was just a continued pipeline into the community. And then as she got older, she always had some kind of summer job on Norfolk State's campus.
Right.
So it's like we were always connected, preparing the next generation.
Right.
Education, health professionals, all of this stuff. And the thing that I keep coming back to is all these amazing things are happening when the schools aren't getting their fair share of funding, which is the craziest thing. So you're accomplishing amazing things and still underfunded.
Yeah. And it's funny that you bring that up, because I was reading an article. So back in September 2023, at that time, the Secretary of Education and the USDA, they came out. They did a study on the underfunding of state schools under the Land Grant Act, right? And there were, in their study, 18 states were identified. Well, let me take that back. There's 18 states that have historically black colleges and universities in them. Out of the 18, 16 of those states, those, not all of the HBCUs, but those who receive land grant funding, have been recognized for their lack of funding to those schools. So when we talk about what those 16 states are, we're talking about Alabama, we're talking about Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, West Virginia. We're talking about 16 states that have a land grant institution that was established to receive funding from the state to exist, to educate. They have not received their funding. So, greatness of an historically black college and university, but it also comes with its challenges, right? So, I think it's important that we just continue to share, and everyone that is out there continue to share with you know, the knowledge that they have about historically black colleges and universities, and how we can continue to, you know, help them grow. You know, reach out to your representatives, your senators in your states, especially those who have historically black colleges and universities, you know, to increase that funding. You know, reach out to the HBCU caucus in Congress, a bipartisan caucus that works to, you know, help to subsidize historically black colleges and universities. So, you know, and just working through many different avenues to make sure that they get the funding. But to your word, they are doing great things, even being underfunded. So imagine, you know,
if
what
they
it
got
like.
full funding,
Right.
what they could do.
Right. And I just heard that, for example, Morgan State wants to be the first
Yeah.
HBCU to have an HBCU hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Medical school.
Medical
they,
school.
They on their way. They on their way. Shout out to Morgan.
Think of it. So think about that, right? Think about that.
And think about how much sooner they would accomplish that if they had been getting the money that they deserved all these years. I mean, when you talk about the funding, you can't even really calculate the things they could have done all these years with the money that they've been owed. You said all those things are, you know, things that you know, it just really sticks out to me, because what really sticks out to me is that, you know, how many people knew about that all those years?
Right.
All those people that knew those schools weren't getting the money they were supposed to get all those years, they knew.
Yeah.
They knew that the school wasn't getting the money. They knew the schools were owed the money. You know, it makes me wonder, where did the money go? But that's a whole nother story. Whole nother story. I mean, listen, this is our mission. This is HBCU Soul. You know, if this mission resonates with you, you know, we want you to subscribe, you know, rate the podcast, share this episode with a student or family considering college. You know, put us on your social media, because this information is important. You know, things like the funding, the different things, that stuff needs to get out there. Right. You know, there's a lot of reasons why people don't know about HBCUs, because the information is just not there.
Right.
You know, HBCUs are more than just homecoming.
Yes.
You know, it's more than just strolling.
Yes.
It's more than just, you know, every Wednesday is soul food day. It's more than that. Those are important aspects of it, of course, but it's more than that. So, you know, some of this factual information that we share, you know, make a meme. You know, put this information out there.
Right.
The same way, you know, we share, you know, sororities and fraternities strolling, share some of this factual information on your social media. You know, share it with friends, share it in the workplace. Because the thing is, the only way things will change is if people really know what's happening.
Right. Yeah. I mean, maybe we should make a line dance, like, with a song that we have.
That'll do it.
That would
you
do
know,
it, right? Yeah.
Because if you could add factual information to boots on the ground,
that would be great.
Listen.
So, like, when you hear our song, right, you know, we can come up with a line dance to I recommend you at an HBCU. Like, that would be, like, create a TikTok for all of that stuff. But, you know, what Ant said is extremely important. And as we go through and release more episodes, especially when it comes to the specific HBCUs that we're going to talk about, like everything from their importance in their community, their foundation, their establishment, what their mission and vision is and was, and why that was important, to the notable alum, to, you know, just the overall, how to get there, how to pay for it, what that structure is like. We want to make sure that you share all of that with, you know, those prospective students, family, friends, this, that, and the other. You know, so with that, I want to just, again, subscribe, hit the like button, all the things.
We back.
We back.
We back, baby.
I want to put it out there, like, and you can drop it in the comments as you watch the comments. What did your HBCU, so for all those people who are currently attending an HBCU and who are alum of HBCU.
And we do know that alum means that you attended. You attended. You didn't have to graduate.
Right.
If you've ever attended a college, you are an alum.
Yeah.
So if you went to HBCU for a semester, for a year, you are an alum.
Yeah.
So that is a part of your story.
Yep. So what I want you to do, and you drop it in the comments, what did your HBCU teach you that a textbook couldn't? So think about that, right? And I'll repeat it again. What did an HBCU, your HBCU, teach you that a textbook couldn't? So drop that in the comments section. So when we think about this, and before we close out, right? Because we want to make sure that we save a lot for our episodes coming down. One of the things we want to leave you with is, again, HBCUs were founded in resistance, built with excellence, and remain rooted in service. They continue to shape generations of trailblazers, creators, freedom fighters, people who carry the torch of progressiveness in the Black American community and throughout the nation as a whole. And that's what HBCU SOUL also is built on.
That's it. You know, that's the soul. You know, that's HBCU. So that's what we're here for. You know, we're here to tell the stories. You know, talk about our experiences at an HBCU, the ones I can talk about anyway. Celebrate the wins. You know, just keep the conversation moving forward. You know, HBCUs are a vital part of our history.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be here without it. I wouldn't be here without it at all.
Yep.
I came into this world, like I said earlier, at an HBCU.
Right. Yes. So, and my experience of HBCUs started with school days, different world, and I remember, I can't remember who they were playing. I think it was Grambling Hampton. I know Grambling was definitely there. They had a game at the Meadowlands in New Jersey when I was younger, and my cousin took me to the game. And I saw the band and all the things. It was crazy. I was like, what is that? I need to go to that. And then school days, different world. Those were my experiences. And then just trying to find, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of information out there about HBCUs when I was in school. I was that kid who, yes, did grow up in the projects, but I went to a suburban school. Wasn't a whole lot of, you know, push for HBCUs. So I had to do all the research on my own. So as you were born into it, Tennessee State, I had to navigate that space, and I know you still navigated that space. But however we can make this information and access to an historically Black college or university available, that's what we're going to do through this.
That's right. That's right.
Next time, our first HBCU Soul Spotlight. So join us for that. And
I mean, listen, it is what it is. We back. You know, we back. That's pretty much all we can say. You know, we back, you know, but we do have previous episodes. If you follow at HBCU SOUL everywhere on all social media platforms, you can look at the previous episodes. You know, you can look at all the different sneakers that he has. You know, listen, I just don't show mine. That's all. You know, I just don't show my sneakers. That's all. As you see, he's doing all those different things. Listen, you know, from the yard to the world, you know, as always, we want you to stay soulful. Stay HBCU soulful.
HBCU.
Thank you.
HBCU. If you want your good food, go to HBCU. If you want your some jewels, go to HBCU. If you want your some smooth, go to HBCU. If you want some learning tools, go to HBCU. I recommend you at the HBCU. Today, over 300,000 students are enrolled. 100 HBCUs across the country. Within 20 states of the District of Columbia.